Hello, friends. Hello, brothers. Hello, Dennis. How are you?
Hola.
Hola.
Doing great. Doing great. Just another day in paradise.
It's good.
Finished up one presentation. I need to get busy on another. I got two more I've got to get ready.
Mm. Yeah, I don't have any right now. I have to worry about. The muse has not struck me lately. I've not felt the urge to write, so I've not done so. We got Trenton in here, David Lawson, Gene's here, Scott,
Hello, hello, hello.
Devin, and Charles Smith. What is the topic tonight, Scott? That's a good question, Scott.
Hmm.
The topic is Freemasonry.
Interesting.
The topic is Freemasonry.
Okay.
So
If
he
you want
actually,
to,
Scott reached out to me about a former lodge of mine and a brother there, and he was talking about one of another lodge in that district. Excuse me, and the state of that lodge, and there was conversations by the other lodges of that district that they were going to be trying to probably look for a merge in like a year or two. And the thing is, nobody wants it. Nobody wants this lodge because of all the drama and just bad decision making. I mean, it's just it's a dumpster fire. And so
wow.
yeah, and so the question was, where would they go? I don't know. None of the very few of the lodges. There's maybe one lodge that'd be naive enough to let them in, and I think that's just part of guarding the West Gate. The West Gate sometimes applies to new members. It usually applies to new members. Sometimes it applies to existing members that want to join, and sometimes it might apply to an entire lodge trying to join yours. Um, I really, frankly, if we're, I can't think of any situation where it'd be beneficial to just blanket allow an entire lodge to join you. Um, and I'm in favor of mergers. Don't get me wrong. I'm in favor of merging, but you should probably pick who. You should be a little more diligent about who comes because every time you see a merge, you always get like one or two ass jacks that have no business in the fraternity that just get swept in with everybody else, and now you got a problem on your hands. Now you got someone that has no business in the fraternity, let alone in your lodge, and you didn't see it coming.
Well, that's golly, you're talking to that one resolution right there. But
But that,
you're validating the need for that one resolution that I don't believe in.
no, I don't think it is validating it
Sure
because
you
they
are,
just they
because you're
just
saying that you won't, that even though they're Masons, you don't want them in your lodge.
yeah. Well, they're okay. They
So
are
that's what that resolution
they're
is about, is that
members. They're
if they
members.
come back, if they come back, they don't automatically become members of the lodge again. They have to
Oh, that
request
one.
it.
Well, that's only if they're suspended for something.
Right. So, but still, it's the same thing. You're still deciding, you're saying that a Mason is not good enough to be in your lodge. And while I certainly do appreciate the the invitation only lodges,
Mm-hmm.
and I certainly appreciate what you're saying on that, because, and I'll expand in a minute. I'm not going to do the because, but I
What's up,
I
Adam?
think that I think that just a blanket, keeping a few people out, allowing a lodge to come in and keep a few people out is not a is not doable, in my opinion. If they're members, they all come over. But that is where I think that before merging,
Mm-hmm.
lodges should expect whoever the lodge that will remain is, they should expect those members to start showing up before they merge and be a part of their lodge and see how they function within their lodge, because you're absolutely right. A couple of bad apples can kill a lodge.
Mm-hmm.
That lodge is dying for some reason. So, do you really want the people that are killing that lodge to come to your lodge and kill your lodge too. And I say, no,
Yeah.
you don't want that. But I think in any case, it should be a matter of having the people come over ahead of time and start doing joint functions and start doing different things to see if it's going to work.
Yeah. I think that already happens in this district that we're talking about, just because it's so small and a lot of these lodges co pretty much do everything together. And I see what you're saying, right? It's not really doable. You can't say you could merge, but only this and this and this and this person. I'm saying, what I'm saying really is if, and I think you hit the nail on the head. If a lodge is dying, it's dying for a reason. And if you look at it and say, well, it's because of two or three toxic members and bad leadership, it's better altogether just not the lodge merge with you at all. Just not even bother with it.
Right. And
Now,
that's what I would say.
Now, if some of the people independently come out and reach out to you and they want to merge, that's when you start looking at it with scrutiny. Who is this? What role do they play in all this over there? Right?
Right. Right. Well, I would also say that
Uh-huh.
as it stands right now, anybody can visit another lodge. So you don't have to be a member to come and screw up another lodge. You can be a visitor and input opinion here and start spouting off toxicity in your lodge or in the lodge that you're visiting, and create the same thing. So if you're, yeah, it's just a bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they need to clean house before they merge with somebody.
You can't clean house if your leadership is part of the problem. Leadership's who cleans house, right? But
It's true.
they are not having the merge conversation. It's other lodges that are looking at them and saying that lodge is going to be merging soon with somebody.
Oh,
They got like
okay.
$3,000 in their bank account,
Oh, so they'll demise
and,
before they
and
merge.
that's it.
Then
And their building's falling apart. Yeah, they're not making smart decisions. Let's see. Gene asks, after you get raised to sub degree of Master Mason, how long do you have to wait to join an independent body?
after you turn in your work.
Yeah, legally. Once you turn your work, you're good to join anything. A lot of people will tell you to wait. I think I'm not really huge on that. For two reasons. If you want to continue the York Ride journey, because you started the York Ride journey, why not just go ahead and just go York Ride and finish that? If you're wanting something more esoteric, you're not going to find it in Blue Lodge. You're probably not going to find it in York Ride. So why wait a year for what you really... Why wait a year to start seeking the light that you were promised? If that makes sense. And so if you want something more esoteric, don't wait a year. Go Scottish Rite. I mean, I don't. Life's too short just to wait a year, twiddling your thumbs, listening to minutes, and eating spaghetti off a paper plate. You can still participate in your Blue Lodge and be active in your Blue Lodge and join independent bodies. So
Right.
do what makes you happy.
But the requirement is that you have to turn in your work, and that also includes the all program. That's part of when you become a Mason, Master Mason. That's part of you getting to stay a Master Mason and become a full-fledged member. So it's turning in your proficiency as well as doing the all program. Then you can join independent bodies, because then you're not at risk of losing your membership.
Yep. Adam, thanks for letting me know about the next festive board over at Sol Ross. So June 8th. That would that works
He
out
didn't
well.
tell me.
He
He
just
obviously didn't want me to be there, so I'll just scratch that off my calendar.
said they're going to have an extremely
You told the
exciting
wrong
speaker.
guy.
So I assumed it wasn't. I assumed it was somebody else. But yeah, I didn't think I'd run into you if they're having a good speaker, Dennis.
I know, right?
No, but that's cool. I'm sorry that I missed the last one, and sorry the speaking didn't work out last time. So look forward to hopefully attending this year. That'd be good. Trenton, Gene, if you have the time and availability to participate, no point in being York Right if you can't make the meetings, degrees, or join if you can't afford one. What Scott said that always happy to be happy to have the goal of Goliad. So
Nice, nice. I I think that that reply was spot on. If if you can't afford it and you don't have the time to do it, don't join it.
mhm.
I I'm feeling extremely guilty right now because I haven't had the time to do the York right like I had anticipated this year. I've what is my conversation that unpalatable? You have to down a bunch of beer to get through it. Is that what you're trying to imply there?
Well, you said it, not
But
me.
I transferred my membership, but then again, this has been a year and a half long process trying to get it done.
Hmm.
Um, I transferred it down to San Antonio from McKinney because I planned on getting active again in York Right,
Hmm.
and it just hadn't been in the cards because I've got so many other commitments that I'm still working through before I can commit that time. So you're absolutely right. There's no need to join any other appendant body until you really have time to commit because you're not going to learn whatever it is that you're supposed to be learning out of that body if you're if you just go through the degrees initially and then never go back.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
After going Scottish Rite, I've reflected a lot on York Rite because I've been York Rite for almost like 15
We
years.
did it. We
Yeah.
did it.
And so,
Yeah.
well, hold on, because I enjoy York Rite and I think it has a lot of potential, but I think it misses. I don't think York Rite. I don't think it knows what it wants to be, and I think that's why it suffers so much.
Oh, sure it does.
Oh no, here's why. It has the degrees require Scottish Rite numbers of people, and but they're and we try to convey them. Well, that's it. We try to convey them instead of confer them. But they're designed to be conferred. And so
Right.
the issue is you have these degrees that were designed for initiatic experiences like the rest of the York Rite degrees, like the first three. However, there's so many of them and they require so many people that they're conferred in festival form, which is not what they're designed for. So that's the first thing. So either I don't know. I don't know. We need to we need to reevaluate the way that we do that. I think, and I'd also point out that the second issue that they have is once they get people in, they don't really know what the hell to do with them. And the advantage of a York Rite is that most York Rite bodies don't own their own bodies. They don't. I mean, they don't own their own buildings, and so they don't have to stress about the administrative stuff like a Blue Lodge does. And I find that more successful York Rites are the ones that are focusing on education, just like Scottish Rite does. I think the York Rite education. I think York Rite is more geared towards exoteric education in Freemasonry, and I think Scottish Rite is geared more towards esoteric, if that makes sense. So York Rite would be like the
That's why it's
history.
called the university.
Yeah. Well, York Rite would be like the history and
Well, and drill team.
well,
You
that's
nailed it. You
commandery.
nailed it because they don't know what to do with themselves, and so they join the commandery and do drill team.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do drill teams. I don't enjoy that.
No.
I will certainly open lodge as a member of the commandery, but I'm not that guy to do drill team stuff.
Yeah.
That's not me.
Well, I mean, I've been to York Rite meetings where we had a good speaker, and they would talk about why we do it this way or why we do it that way, or here's a little history of the York Rite, and this is why it is the way it is, and that's interesting to me. But I don't think enough York Rite bodies do that. And I think if you want to dive into something deeper, because I mean Scottish Rite, I mean it dives right into it in the actual degrees themselves. So if you want to dive into something deeper, then that's where Scottish Rite comes in. Well,
Right.
Jason says that's why we brought AMD to Seguin for York Rite education, which is good if your AMD does that. My AMD does not. We do not have education, and I mean we'll fix that whenever I can.
But
But
why would I want to join York Rite and then have to join AMD to get my education? Why would I want to do that? I understand your intent, Jason, and y'all did a great thing there, and that's great. But I'm just saying, why would I be a member of a body that I have to go join another body just to learn about the one body that I'm in already, that I'm already paying dues on?
yeah,
Three bodies, actually, because York Rite consists of three different
it's kind of a carrot and
bodies.
stick situation, right? But AMD does have its own interesting degrees with their own interesting histories. So it has its own interesting uh, backstory that you can have education on. So
Right.
it opens a new chapter in Freemasonry that you can start learning about. But I also agree I shouldn't have to start. I joined Blue Lodge to learn about Freemasonry. Well, it's not there. Well, I'll go York Rite. Well, we don't really do anything here. If you really want education, you got to do AMD. And you have to be invited to that. You can't just ask. And so
Right.
it's kind of a carrot stick situation. I think it should be offered everywhere, but I think AMD can offer education that's unique to York Rite, and I think York Rite can offer some really good education. Blue Lodge should have it too, and if you want, but it's all very exoteric. It's all very front facing. It's all very not to offend the the less esoterically minded people, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I take a little bit of a different stance than what you just said. I mean, you said basically what I was saying, but um, I don't think that the AMD should. I don't think they should be for everybody. I think I
No.
think that invitation only is the only way to go.
Hmm?
And the reason I say that, and maybe I just misheard you, but the reason I say that it's so important for it to be invitation only is because if you look at all the very successful bodies in Freemasonry, they're invitation only.
Hmm.
People are committed to those invitation only bodies because they know they're not going to have to deal with people that they know don't share the same values in their Masonic experience. I think that's why they're so successful.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why Blue Lodges should be invitation only. And not inviting people to petition. I'm not saying that because you can't do that. You can't
Right.
ask people to join. But you can invite them to come to dinner. You can
Yep.
invite them to associate with the members of your lodge. And then
Yep.
if they choose to petition, that's their decision.
Right.
So Adam says the York Rite has all the problems Blue Lodge Masonry has, but 10 times worse. I think you
Yep.
said I think what you said about the identity crisis, interesting take. So I always say York Rite has all the has the best of the Blue Lodge people, but none of the Blue Lodge drama. That's always been my experience. But it does have problem because especially if you meet both bodies on the same night, it's just like what? Why are we opening both of these to talk about nothing? I think if we're being just straightforward about York Rite, get rid of you got to start. There's two options. There's two ways you approach York Rite. Either you keep all the degrees as they are and make it more like they are conveyed, more like a Scottish Rite approach. Here's a stage. Here's someone giving the example,
At
and
least have at least have costumes.
yeah, and have costumes and convey it with a backdrop and everything, kind of like Commander does with a lot of their stuff. Um, or or say, look, we're going to drop a lot of these degrees that don't necessarily they don't really add value. Like really, York Rite, the most important ones is you got to have your first three and your Royal Arch, and I know you got to be a past master, but I don't know how that really works because I don't think in England you have to actually be a past master to get the Royal Arch. I don't know, but have your Royal Arch.
The
Have
Royal Arch is the fourth degree.
yeah, I know, but they always say you have to be a past master before you get the Royal Arch. I don't know if that's
Oh,
accurate. but treat it like a terminal degree, and everything else is just extra. And if you have a healthy Yorkite, they confer all the degrees. But have your terminal degrees in Yorkite that say, hey, we're going to confer these initiatically, like we did with the first three. That way, I mean, it still takes a lot of people, but I don't have to learn 7 degrees to get them all the way through Yorkite. It might just be like 1 additional degree or 2 additional degrees, and then they're a Yorkite Mason that can participate in all the Yorkite stuffs. Yeah, Yorkite doesn't
Well,
need an Albert Pike. I agree. You need someone to
well,
actually go through it and renovate it.
Albert Pike was Yorkite, and the Yorkite degrees did have Albert Pike, and Albert Pike turned them into the Scottish Rite. That's a reality, guys. That's that was part of the transformation of the Scottish Rite way back when. And most of the degrees are very similar in nature with the York Rite and Scottish Rite. Some are identical almost,
Mm-hmm.
but the I think the real difference is that when you continue to have a body within the Blue Lodge framework, it takes on the feel of Blue Lodge. So I think that's a lot of people think that York Rite is more accessible because it goes through the Blue Lodge, but I think that it's to its own detriment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they would be much better if they didn't meet in a Blue Lodge. In fact, the York Rite down in Corpus is pretty dang strong because they actually have a York Rite building. They have their own thing. Uh, Austin has their own York Rite building. There's not many around. Fort Worth has theirs, but but it's a different atmosphere. So you're setting yourself to work in a different culture when you go to those bodies in those other places.
Yeah, you have to.
That's just an opinion,
If you
though.
want something to feel
I'm not.
separate, if you want it to feel special, you have to separate it. Right?
Yeah,
You say
gotta
if
keep
you,
it
if you want York Rite to
separated.
feel more special than Blue Lodge, it has to be separate for the Blue Lodge in some way.
Right,
And the more that's what's interesting about Scottish Rite. I mean, it has its own building, and it's very different. It's a very different feel, and it's you travel there and you go, and it's something totally different. And that's what I think you hit the nail on the head with saying that York Rite Corpus has its own body. I mean, its own building. I keep saying that it has its own building. I think if you have your own building, and I think that's really what it comes down to, and I think that's the direction York Rite seems to be going. You're getting less York Rites, and they're converging into larger York Rite organizations, and it's almost going to be like Scottish Rite eventually. If it wants to survive, it has to be. Where it's going to have its own place. And these are dedicated York Rite Masons that can confer degrees, and whatever way they end up doing it, that's where it happens.
right, right. And making making education a priority.
Yep.
That's got to be at the top of the list. I was just writing the presentation I was writing today is is about the one emotion that prevents it can make one man the leader of many, and it can freeze another man to not do anything, and that's fear. And without the only combatant against fear in our life is education. The only way that we can regain our confidence in something is through education, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Fear isn't fear isn't something that can just be um, turned over just by deciding one day I'm not going to be afraid anymore. It's something that you have to educate yourself against, the uh, the uh, the things that cause that fear. So I think that without education in any of the bodies, um, all that means is that they're afraid to challenge one's beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
If a body is afraid to tell you what the real secrets are within that body, then they're afraid to challenge you and your own personal beliefs, and that's not Freemasonry.
Yep. Adam asks, is there anywhere in the state that York Rite is exemplary and fantastic? It really depends on what you mean, right? I,
McKinney has a very good York Rite.
what do you mean by very good? Like they can confer their own degrees and they have good turnouts,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
yes. I mean, it's a big deal in McKinney.
Hmm.
It really is, and they take it very seriously.
It's good. There's not many. I would say that there's a lot of York Rite bodies, and they're either, I mean, the one in Hillsboro that I'm a member of still, it's 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 growing. It's getting better, right? But if I mean they're if their Blue Lodge ends up merging at some point, they're in a whole bunch of trouble, right? So it's healthy now and it's growing now, but who knows what the future looks like? So it's really hard to say. Unfortunately, I mean, McKinney I hear is good. I think Arlington has a good one, but yeah,
Yep.
it is what it is.
And really in most of your major cities, like Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, well, and Lubbock, they have a really good York right now. In most of your larger areas, you do have a more solid base, but in fact, San Antonio is the exception to that rule because there's not a very strong base in San Antonio, and that's the whole reason that I came down to San Antonio as my chapter council and commandery was to be a part of the positive growth, but it I just hadn't had the time to commit lately.
Wow, so much for that. Ball dropped. But yeah, I don't know. I was very impressed by the Scottish Rite experience, and so I think it forced me to really reflect on a lot of the experiences that I've had so far in Freemasonry, and a lot of them come short, and it's not because Scottish Rite was prepared. They had procedures in place. So we've talked about this before. We talked about the importance of procedures, right? They had procedures in place to be sure that things ran smoothly and people knew what was needed and what desired of them. And so it was very different than any other Masonic experience that I've had. And I think we could all learn from that. But it all depends.
Right.
It all, it all, I can't talk. Scottish Rite is successful because people take it seriously. They think it's important and they
Yes.
take it seriously. Blue Lodge is not successful if people don't think it's important and take it seriously. Same thing with York Rite, AMD, insert organization here, right? As soon as we start thinking it's something mundane and it's not special, we act like it. And when we act like it's not special, we treat it like it's not special. And when it's not special, the organization dies. So we have to put the work in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's within the organization for sure.
See, I was just looking through the comments.
I know. I see you doing that. That's why I was waiting.
They're just talking about their different York Rites. He says McKinney is where I got my chapter. This is Trenton. McKinney is where I got my chapter council and commander degrees. And then David Lawson says we are working to resurrect our York Rite with the help of several grand officers. We have a festival
Very
January
nice.
13th if anyone wants to come. Same, I'm not sure what Trenton's saying. Same invisible friends. Commandery is regrowing right now with the help of for great companions. Yeah. We've had people from the Grand Chapter Council come help us at Hillsboro, and they're great. They're very willing to put the work in. But that's part of the reason I'm not really involved. I don't want to get involved with the Grand Chapter Council because I feel like their biggest responsibility right now is to try to nurture all these lodges that could demise that could merge and fall apart at the drop of a hat right now. I don't have the time for
Yeah,
that.
That's a big job right there,
Yeah,
having to run around the state to take care of lodges that don't want to take care of themselves.
yeah, or just don't, or just don't know how to, right? Like as far as well, like York, right? I mean, you got the signs, you got. We don't really have the same lodges of instruction in district instructors like Blue Lodge does. So, like, where do I stand when I'm doing this? Who needs the? Where am I going? What am I saying? A lot of the stuff's
Right,
not just point blank.
right.
So I don't know. I don't know. I like York, right? I like the companions it puts me in contact with, and if it's done right, it's really enjoyable. But I don't know, man.
I'll never forget my York Rite degrees. They were great.
I will
They were
forget.
awesome.
I have forgotten mine because I was working a night shift at the time, and so I came straight off night shift, came to the lodge, 6 o'clock in the morning, no sleep after I'd been awake since like 6 the day before, and saw all of the chapter council and degrees in one day. In one
Right.
day, with no sleep, and then I went back to work after that, uh, and so I don't really remember most of that. I remember like bits and pieces, but to this day I don't remember most of it. And so
let me
it's
let me ask you this: when you joined the York Rite, did you receive a book?
yeah, I did.
What book was that?
The it's not the monitor; it's the ritual, like how to do
Yeah,
everything.
not ritual. I'm talking about a book that explains what you just went.
Oh no, no, I didn't
What
get anything.
about what about in the Scottish Rite? Did you get one there?
Yeah, Herodom? No, not
Yeah,
Herodom.
Bridge to Light.
British Delight. Yeah, I had just read it yet, but yeah, I got it.
Well, that's one of the biggest indicators to me that when what the values are within a certain group. If if you join it and there's no extended information that can be obtained for that body, then what's their ultimate goal?
Mm-hmm.
Is their goal really for me to be transformed to rebuild my temple, or is their goal to make members?
Yeah. By the way, what did in our last interview? Kind of shifting gears here, but what in our last interview did the brother say it took about 20 man hours per degree to get someone where they need to be to turn in their work?
It's total 200 man
Total of
hours.
200 by the time they're
Yeah,
done with everything.
from entered apprentice to master mason, it's a total of about 200 man hours.
Let's see. So 200 man hours. Let's see here. So about 67 man hours per degree, right? And I don't know what would you say minimum wage is right now?
It's like $10 now, I think, maybe more.
Let me
Remember
look
that they
here.
made that big jump just a year or two ago? Man, I remember when it was $4. Golly, I was happy
Yeah, I
to
remember
make it.
making $5. Okay, well the average salary in Texas for an office worker is 1408. So let's go with that. Oh wait, 725.
Wow,
Let's go with
1408.
1408. Let's go with 1408.
Wow,
Here's where I'll go with this. Well,
I couldn't live on that. No wonder there's the rich rich and the poor poor. I couldn't live on that.
if it's 67 at
I couldn't
minimum
buy my
wage,
gas to get there.
that's $485. Okay, at 1408. Oops, I don't want to divide. I don't want to multiply. That's nine hundred
That's
forty-three
twenty
dollars.
eight hundred. That's $2,800
What's 2800?
for 200 hours.
Oh, I was just doing. I divided by three. I'm doing 67. My point.
Oh, okay.
My point. If it takes 200 man hours for a man, for a brother, to go from petitioner to master mason, What are we charging? So that breaks down to about 67 per degree, 67 hours per degree. What are we charging these people? Like, how do we get our numbers for what we charge
We're
people?
charging about $1.75 an hour to do the degrees. It's off the top of my head. You might want to use a calculator.
67 times $1.75. Let's do this. Let's do $1.60. No. Wow.
Less?
Most degrees are like $100, right?
Yeah.
So we're charging $1.50 an hour to teach these people and get them through.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
Nice.
If we charge them, if we just said, okay, it's gonna take.
And because that's all we charge them, we can't afford costumes. We can't afford white gloves. We can't afford nice aprons. We can't
Or a good
afford all
meal.
the things that go with it.
Yep. Or what if we said, okay, our brother's time has value, right? Because they have families, they have their own careers, they have their own hobbies outside of Freemasonry, they have their commitments outside of Freemasonry. It's going to take this guy 67 man hours to teach them. Let's say it's the minimum wage. Let's just assume we're charging minimum wage to this petitioner to learn this, right? That's $485, almost $486 per degree. If you say, well, let's look at what the average salary is in Texas, which is 1408. $67 times 1408 is $943. That's for 67. That's for 1 degree. And the thing is, if you
Right.
look historically at what we used to charge people, that's still cheaper than what we used to charge people. I'm just saying, if we're reevaluating, like what's if because we always talk about dues, right? And I think what dues need to be is pretty straightforward. But what standard do you base what my degree fees need to be based off of? You can say, well, if I give them this and this and this, I need to be sure that's covered, but that's bare minimum. But if you say, look, this brother's going to be sitting with this guy for 67 hours on average with a new brother through every degree. And so 67 hours, say his time's only worth, I don't know, say he's retired, he's not busy. I don't know, it doesn't, whatever standard you want to use, 725 or 1408. That's how you decide what you need to be charging for your degree fees. If you say, well, that's too expensive for somebody. No, it's based off the average salary or at least minimum wage, right? This guy's going to be spending 67 hours with this brother learning this degree. He makes more than minimum wage. He should be paying the lodge for the time it takes for him to learn this degree. And if he doesn't want to do
Hmm.
that, he can go. He can find somewhere cheap to go if he wants to.
What's interesting is that the $14 equates to $2,800, like I was saying,
Mm-hmm.
and that's basically 5 weeks of that's 40 hours over 5 weeks. And back in the day, that was the gauge on how much it cost to do things, was a month's salary or a week's or a 2 week salary or whatever. That's how they would gauge things on what they cost, is by they compared it to an average salary. That's how they figured it out. We don't do it today, but that's how they figured it out back then.
Mm. Yeah, I've heard that
So a
before.
month's salary with 5 weeks in a month. I know it's not always 5 weeks in a month, but you know, if you think about it that way, then that's exactly what it would be. $2,800
Mm-hmm.
would be realistic at minimum wage salary.
Well, Scott says this is a common misconception that most people will buy something good wrapped in a paper bag. I agree. I mean, if you were walking through Walmart and you walked by a discount bin and it said "Secrets to the Universe," now $1.99.
Are you going to take those secrets seriously?
Yeah, I mean, even if you did buy it, you gonna take
You
it
give it them,
seriously?
you give them away for 50 cents a pop, and nobody would want them because they'd think they were a fraud.
As opposed to some old guy with a robe and a cowl and like a cane, looks like the hermit off the tarot card. Like, I could sell you the secrets of the universe, only
I'm going to
a
argue with
thousand
you, Scott.
dollars.
one thing that I have purchased in the equivalent of a paper bag that was well worth it. I bought a bottle of tequila in Mexico that was wrapped in a newspaper, and I brought it home with me, and that was the best tequila I've ever drank. I don't drink tequila, and because I hate it, but I bought that bottle. It was wrapped in a newspaper, and it was the best tequila I've ever had. Sorry, I hate to contradict you, but there is one thing.
Oh, yeah.
That I'll buy. There is that one thing that I won't buy my Freemasonry in a brown paper bag. That's for sure.
David Lawson says, is the basis of your idea just to teach the required questions and answers, or to include teaching symbolism as well? So I have two answers to the question.
Say that again.
Basically, he's asking if you charge that much money, is all you're teaching the questions and answers, or are you offering something more? The lodge should be offering something more, right? That
it should already be.
It should already be offering
members,
something
for
more,
all of its members,
right? So ideally, yeah. I mean, if we're being honest, if you're just teaching the questions and answers, and ideally the lodge is picking up the slack on everything else, yeah. I mean, you're paying that much money for the time it takes to teach you these things. But I've also always been a huge advocate of the fact that I like the idea of a brother researching and writing a paper on the things that he's learned. So
right. I like that too.
I think there's value in that.
But let me pose a question.
Hello, Roland.
Let me pose a question. What would happen if you did charge $2,800 for the degrees and charged $400 a month in dues to your membership?
A month?
And let's say a year, I mean. And let's say $400 a year, $2,800, and let's say you only have 20 members. So 20 members times 400, that's $8,000 a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
$8,000 a year. Now, let's do this. Let's say that you only meet 4 times a year. You rent the lodge that you meet in for $50 a pop. So that's $160 out of that 8,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's not even adding on the degrees and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, who do you think you could pay to come in and speak each month or at each
I think you could ask any Masonic scholar on the face of the earth.
Exactly. You could afford to invite anyone, fly them in, have a talk just for your membership, and fly them back home on that kind of money.
Yep.
The value would be there if we would just raise our expectations financially.
Well, you see, as you said, 20 people. You see this in lodges in other countries where they cap themselves, right? Like 30 people. And the people that are in that lodge are very close-knit. They're close-knit because those are their lodge brothers. They don't really, I mean, they visit other lodges and everything, but they're close-knit. And yeah, it's expensive, but like you said, you know it's going to be a good meal. You know it's going to be a good presentation. You know after lodge is going to be equally good. So you're getting the quality that you pay for.
Yeah. And you're going through those experiences with a small enough group of men that you really create those bonds. That's what creates the bonds in Freemasonry. It's shared experiences. Yeah. That's what creates bonds in anything. It's shared experiences. It's just like how, you marry somebody and over time, maybe not the immediate time or within the first 15 years or whatever, but after 30 years, you are deeply in love with that person because of, if nothing else, for those shared experiences, right? You've got a connection to that person that you just won't give up. Mm-hmm. Same thing with your brothers. If you've got a close-knit set of brothers and you're doing these magnificent things that are life-changing, if you're doing things that are life-changing together, think about how that bond would be. I mean, think about your military and people who are in certain companies together, that have gone to war or whatever. They keep those bonds like nobody else. Mm-hmm. That's a fact.
But let's say that you disagree with the 725, right? If you say, man, $480 for a degree is too much, and that's kind of throwing that as a minimum, right? Well, if it's $5, that's $335 a degree. I mean, right now we're doing about $1.50 on average. So if you say $3, well, come on, you stupid thing.
We don't have costumes. We don't have new regalia. We don't have um, a lot of people don't even have the correct um,
No, Scott.
piece that you're. Let me just say real quick. A lot of people don't even have the correct piece they're supposed to have in place for the fellowcraft degree.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's such a big deal that in that one resolution it says that a minimum of, because some lodges don't even have the minimum to begin with.
Yeah, I mean $3 is 200. $4 is 260. That's per degree.
Right.
300 is probably about what most lodges charge for all three together. But yeah, I agree 100% with what you're saying. You cannot upgrade your lodge in a vacuum, right? You have to have finances to have nice props, nice regalia, nice meals, a nice building that is well maintained. It doesn't come for free, right? And you could say, well, we're going to do fundraisers. More power to you. More power to you if you want to do fundraisers. Um,
Wah, wah, wah.
but you're going to have two or three guys that are doing the lion's share of the work, and they'll get burnt out. And when they walk away from the fraternity, or they say, I'm not doing it anymore, no one's going to step up and you're back where you started. Fundraisers are
You know
not
what's
a permanent solution to a long term problem.
I'm a little embarrassed and a very big hypocrite, really. When when I joined Goliad, they didn't have fundraisers or scholarships. The first fundraiser that was implemented was with me and another member that purchased the items to raffle for our very first fundraiser. And now it's like a staple. It's like, how many other kinds of fundraisers can we do to make money?
Mm-hmm.
That's I'm embarrassed that I was the one who started that.
You ruined them.
They may have done it back in the 80s or something, I don't know, but in recent history that wasn't the case. They just did scholarships based on what they had in the bank, and now I'm kicking myself thinking, why didn't we just raise the dues and keep doing what we were doing?
Yeah, it's I'm looking something up real quick. Yeah,
Okay.
keep talking. I'm looking for something.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not much into fundraisers for things that we're receiving credit for. I would like for lodges to pick a local charity and do it that way. May, if you want to do if you want to do a scholarship, great. Do one big one. Do one big one that's going to make a difference in somebody's life. Then focus your energies on local charities that need to be done. They're Goliad, and they're 80% of all your country towns are just like Goliad. And Goliad is actually a town that is that the average poverty level is higher um, than most, as a percentage, than most cities in Texas. And there's a lot of them like that, right? The So there's need within your own communities for charity. So why couldn't we paint a house, put a new ramp on somebody's, one of our widows' porches? Why can't we, take care of their house, hire a landscape company to take care of their yard every week because they're too old to do it anymore, because that brother's too old to do it anymore. In fact, I have a brother that just faced that reality this year. He's too old to mow his yard now, and he has to hire a landscaper. If he wasn't able to afford that, who would do it? Why aren't we doing that for our brothers and for our communities? Why are we not doing that? We pat ourselves on the back for giving a couple of scholarships away, but really most of that money comes from the home and school
So you're talking about
and our community. We're taking it from our community and the home and school. It's no sweat off our back, and we give it away and say that it's our good deed.
so you're talking a lot about charity, and in a recent conversation we had, I learned something I've never heard of before. I've heard of the four cardinal virtues, but I've
Mm-hmm.
never heard of the three theological virtues. And so it kind of blew my mind because the question was always kind of like, where does faith, hope, and charity really come from? Like, how does that really fit into everything? Well, they're theological virtues. There are three theological virtues: is faith, hope, and charity.
Charity is the result of faith and hope.
Well, I'm just looking at the definition here online based in the
Right.
context of the theological virtues. It says charity is inclining the human to cherish God for his own sake above all things, and man for the sake of God. To love God is to wish him all honor and glory and every good, and to endeavor, as far as one can, to attain it for him. And then it says,
Wow, that's charity.
that's
What
charity.
definition is that?
This one's on Wikipedia, but it's the same one I found on a few other websites.
Wow.
And so it doesn't say
That's
anything about giving money away,
right.
right?
Right.
And faith and hope are equally interesting. So uh, we look at charity as like, well, we don't even focus on faith and hope, right? We see charity and that's something. Oh, we could action on charity. Well, no, charity
We
is
have
really just
somebody that's running around to all the cities saying that, that's our main reason for being in business
well, charity
is to give
in
away money.
context of the
That's
theological
you know who I'm
virtues.
talking about.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like that, but it's just an
Well,
abstracted
the one
it's
that
faith
was
and.
traveling around with us that was always arguing with us about that.
Oh yeah,
Remember?
yeah. I know what you mean.
And it's sad because he's teaching people this
Yeah, and so it's basically the opposite of
travesty.
hatred. It's charity. It's charity's opposite of
It's
hatred.
love.
Yeah, yeah, basically.
That's
So
it.
anyone
That's
that's
what
really
brotherly love and affection is.
this
Is
it's actually
being charitable to each other.
it's gonna be my next paper when I write one. It's gonna be the three theological virtues with the four cardinal virtues. Just kind of educated on that. But
I
yeah,
added
so
it into the paper that I just finished today.
oh you did,
Yep.
yep. So it's
I'll be
interesting.
giving it at Zerny Lodge if you come down next weekend. 16th. I'll be presenting this paper at Zerny Lodge.
Oh,
But I won't be staying long. I'm going to give that presentation, and then I'm immediately driving all the way down to Corpus to do a capping ceremony for three brothers.
man, look at you. You're capping them.
I'm not.
Oh,
I'm I'm I just had to do that. I have set up the event so that our venerable master and other heads of bodies can do it.
got you,
That's their job. It's not my job.
got you.
If one of the heads doesn't show up, then I can do it in their place. I can help out with that. But yeah, it's not my job, man. I just make them.
Yeah,
I just make them. They cap them.
yeah. All right. Well, I'm tired, man. Let's hear your final thoughts for
Are you
tonight.
kidding me? You're weak.
Final thoughts. What you got?
You go first.
Um, we have to reevaluate a lot of our practices in Freemasonry, and there's a reason that Scottish Rite is healthy, and it's growing, and it's not really dealing with a lot of struggles that I mean, sure, it's dealing with struggles that everyone is just because of the way things are today, but
And the mindset of the people.
in the mindset of the people, but it's different. It's different, and they have the right approach. And I think I think Blue Lodges and York Rite organizations need to reevaluate how we're doing things. I think we need to reevaluate our value in the value that we're proposing to people and the value that we're delivering. And I think a lot of that lies behind the scenes, like what we're actually doing as far as having the right procedures and planning in place. But I think a lot of it also comes down to what are we offering? Like, how much are we charging people for these things? You can't, a good degree will have costumes and it will have a good meal and the building will be nice and well kept and clean with nice furniture. But that's not free. And you can't fundraise or lodge it to press. The more fundraising you do, the further you get away from Freemasonry. Because the less time you have for Freemasonry. Because fundraising is time consuming. And so you can't fundraise a lodge into prosperity and still be practicing Freemasonry. So we have to commit our wallets to the fraternity at some point, or just decide maybe it's not for us. And I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, but if you're not seeing the value to provide to support the lodge with your wallet, then you're not getting the value, and it is what it is. Like, I walked away from it before because I wasn't getting the value. So I'm not judging you if that's what it comes down to, but we have to decide that for ourselves at some point. But otherwise, I don't know. I think Freemasonry is at an interesting point, and I think we've talked about the Renaissance a lot, and I think ultimately on the other end of this Renaissance, Freemasonry and every aspect of Freemasonry, from the way it's organized to the way we meet to the way we confer degrees to the way we do meetings, it's all going to change. It's all going to be different. Yeah, and I think it has to be. I think, and I'm not saying change for change's sake, but when something has refused to adapt for 200 years, it kind of pops like a cork eventually. And it either adapts quickly or it loses its connection with the people. And I think that's where we're at because we're so afraid of innovation. Someone snuck that word in that any kind of change or any kind of adaptation looks like an innovation until 100 years have passed and you wonder why we still do things the way this certain way when it makes more sense. So that's kind of where I think the fraternity is as a whole. That's all I got. What do you got, Dennis?
Um, I'd like to state that if you feel like you're not getting the Freemasonry that you joined for, or that you think you should be getting now that you've joined and met other Masons that are getting things that you're not. If that's the case, if that's you, find a good lodge to go to. Don't just try to stick it out in a lodge that's not going to get you there. Find a good lodge to go to. If you can't find them, let us know. We're here to help you because we've both been on islands, and most of the people that
Hello. There.
fear
Okay.
is. I
That was weird.
apologize, brothers. Yeah, that was weird. It freaked me out. I felt all alone. But fear is what allows men to be controlled by tyrannical governments and tyrannical people. When you're afraid to speak your truth, you know you're being run under a tyranny. Let that sink in. Let that sink in right now with our culture today in Texas. When you're afraid to speak your truth, then you're under distress from a tyrannical governance.
Yeah. And
The only way that you're going to change that is to educate yourself and vote.
Yep.
It's the only way you're going to change that.
And
And if you think somebody else is going to do it for you, they're not. They can only vote for themselves. They cannot vote for you. And if you're not there, they are going to vote for themselves, and it's going to be their way.
I agree.
Yeah.
You mentioned speaking our truths, and it was really scary at the beginning of the year to do that. And I know Dennis already does
There's
this.
a lot of
but
people that are still scared.
they are, but I'm telling you, it's very liberating. Like, I don't disrespect the offices or the officers, so I'm not disrespectful, but I'm at that point where I speak my truth because I was just tired of things, right? And it's very liberating. And I think more Texas Freemasons, we just need to respect the position, respect the brothers, but speak the truth within that context.
Right.
And I think too many of us are afraid of doing that. And frankly, if we're an organization where you can't speak your truth respectfully, it's not worth being a part of. So it's a catch-22. But I think too many of us are afraid to speak the truth because they're afraid of consequences. But
Right.
it's not really a consequence if
tyranny,
it's. Yeah, go ahead.
tyranny is the direct polar opposite of enlightenment
Yep.
and education. The reason that there's tyranny is because they don't want it to be anything different. They're afraid. There again, even tyranny begins with fear, because they're afraid that things will change to where they no longer have control.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree.
So, brothers, if you're out there and listening to this, then if you don't make your voice heard, somebody else is going to speak for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only speak for me, and Justin can only speak for himself. And though we do try to echo what we get from you brothers, we definitely do. We're trying to put it out there, but ultimately we can only speak our truth. You have to speak for yourself as well, and make sure that your Freemasonry is intentional and impactful, so that you end up having a legacy you can be proud of.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't make sure that your Freemasonry is still around for your kids, it's your own fault. If you don't make sure that people hold you in a higher regard because of the way you walk and talk in your own communities, it's your own fault. Freemasonry can help you, and education helps Freemasonry.
Yep, absolutely. All right, brothers. Thanks again for hopping in. Thank you,
Keep it
Dennis.
between the points, brothers.
Yep. See y'all later.